Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry upper deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, the Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And good morning, Manitoba Female Hockey League fans, into Episode 2, Season 3 of the Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League podcast. I'm your host, Graham, the G-Show Forsyth. We're brought to you by Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Terraco, as well as a new sponsor in Movement, Fitness, and Performance. Thank you to all of them for supporting us and continuing to support us here on our network. Your home for MFHL hockey on gshow Productions on gshow.ca. We got a great show in store for you all today as we continue to preview the Central Plains Capitals Showcase. We truly do that today, as Ferdi Nelissen is going to be coming on the show first off to preview all of the teams that are going to be competing in this year's showcase, which is starting up tomorrow. In Portage La Prairie. gshow Productions will have the coverage on our Uscreen service at gshowproductions.uscreen.io for 14 of the 22 games that will be played this weekend. All the games can be found on this services. 8 teams in total from the MFHL, so all the teams from this league going to be competing in the showcase, as well as the CSSHL team in Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy, and then 2 Saskatchewan teams in the Weyburn Gold Wings and the Prince Albert Northern Bears will be competing this weekend as well. Without further ado, let's bring Ferdi Nelissen on to the show now as we get things going here on this Thursday morning, just before 10 a.m. right now on gshow Productions, gshow.ca. Ferdi joins the show next. It's Ferdi Nelissen joining this edition of the MFHL podcast. Also, check out his appearance on our Manitoba hockey podcast earlier this week, where we touched on what we're going to talk about here briefly, but we're going to get into it, more of the specifics around the teams competing. 11 teams this year competing in the Central Plains Capitals Showcase, Ferdi, from the 19th to the 21st, Friday to Sunday, coming up this weekend. A lot of great teams in action, but we were talking off air, maybe one of the most exciting coming in, the defending MFHL champs in the Eastman Selects.
Yeah, I don't see them being any worse than they were last year, if not stronger. When you talk to people around the program, they actually think they're going to be a better team this year with overall depth than they were last year. They have some really, they won the U15 AAA League, and they have some quality players coming up. They don't lose anything in net, where they had the best 1-2 punch in the whole province. Their number 2 goalie on paper was named the goalie of the year last year because their number 1 was hurt for quite a bit of the year. So what a problem to have. They're solid on the back end. They've got lots of upfront skill, and they come at you with 3-4 line. They just come at you. They don't. One of the most tenacious forward checking and back checking teams you'll play. They don't make many mistakes. They don't give you much room. Well coached, and they'll have a different coach this year, but he lacks no experience either. Trevor Hildebrand won the U15 league last year, so um, they shouldn't miss a beat, really, when you look at it.
Yeah, and with the games they've already played in Stony Creek, this is another tune-up tournament for them where they'll be kicking off against the Pembina Valley Hawks, Eastman. Can't wait to get a look at what this 2025-2026 version has in store to at least uh, kick things off for our preseason coverage for them. But as for the teams that'll start off the tournament, the host team, the Central Plains Capitals, taking on the Interlake Lightning. Two teams that finished eighth and ninth last year battled each other in the MFHL play-in. A lot of hope heading into the season for a lot of teams, these two being no exception. Take me through, what these two squads are going to have to offer fans.
Well, you know what? I think Interlake probably lost more in the off season than Central Plains did with the players that graduated out of their program. Um, Central Plains was the youngest team in the league with probably I think it was 11 or 12 first years last year. So they'll come back with a lot more depth that way, experience for those players that did make the team. Not all of them are returning. Um, they had a good crop from Winnipeg come out, and they, the big loss for them obviously was Elise Dembo in net, but they've picked up a pretty solid goaltender from sports school in Schwartz. So, I mean, and Olivia May will give them good goaltending. They'll be okay in net. Um, they, Faith Legault is returning on the blue line after playing at sports school for a year. Um, I think they'll be deeper there. They did pick up uh, Chloe Macbeth from Brandon because Brandon folded. So I think they'll be bigger, stronger. They have Taylor Tarrant returning, who will be a great leader for them. And they have this year they have more returning players than they have new players. Interlake is going to have to find a way to score goals, which has been a struggle for both those teams in the past. So far, I haven't seen any games that Interlakes have played, but Central Plains went out to play Notre Dame in Saskatchewan for 2 games and scored 4 in one game. 4-2, they beat them. That was without, and Taylor Tarrant wasn't there. She was with the team Manitoba versus the Bisons. And then they beat them, they actually swept Notre Dame, beat them 2-1. And then they lost 4-3 to Pembina Valley on the weekend.
Right.
And again, the one thing we couldn't do last year was get a lot of shots on net. They had 36 on the weekend against Pembina Valley. So you know what? There's those things, but like I say, when it comes to um, Interlake, I'm not sure where they're going to find their scoring. I haven't overly looked at their roster. They have some returning players, but they lost a lot of their high-end offensive players, which is going to be that's a tough goal for any team in our league. But Kelsey McConnell is a good coach, and she'll have that team play hard. They'll play hard on the puck, and they'll play you physical. So be prepared to play them and play a low-scoring game because they will be relentless and they will be hard to play against for sure. Um, Other than that, it's a crapshoot to see where both those teams will end up.
For sure.
I personally think they have a chance to finish a little bit higher than they did last year.
Yeah, and a lot of excitement around the Central Plains program, like you said, a year older this year and have made some additions. And yeah, Interlake, no matter what type of skill they have on their roster, one thing is for certain, they're going to come at you and they're going to compete through those 60 minutes. You mentioned Brandon. Not going to be a team this year. Westman going to be getting some nice additions from that squad on their team this year. They're taking on Yellowhead to start things off. Yellowhead, they've been a strong contender year in and year out in the MFHL. They make their return to this tournament along with their rival in Westman. Only fitting they start off the showcase against each other, eh?
Yeah, might have been planned, but you know what? Yellowhead, Derek Tibbetts won't be the head coach for the first time, and
Wow.
yeah, and but you know, he'll be on the staff as an assistant. I don't know if he'd be, but they have the returning staff knows the team. One thing about Yellowhead is they have an identity. They play again, a very physical, hard style of hockey. They're relentless. They're not afraid to take penalties. They'll make you work for every inch of the ice. They do have some skill. I mean, they obviously lost a couple of their top players, but they have some players coming up, and they did gain a couple of players from Brandon. I think both Westman and Yellowhead, a concern will probably be who's going to step up and be the number one goaltender for both those teams. Westman will have reaped the benefit the most out of Brandon Folding. That's where probably 70% of the players that could play in our league ended up that were still left. Like I said, and they actually gained because when Brandon did come back in, they ended up getting Carberry away from Central Plains, and that didn't come back to Central Plains over the summer. So they've expanded. I think they'll be fighting if they can get some goaltending. They've got with Perkin and a lot of players, they've got good offensive upside, and they always play a solid defensive game. But now, do they have a goaltender that can actually compete with the top four teams to be a 3-4 team in the league? I think they're going to be fighting for a top 3-4 spot, in my opinion, with the players they have.
Yeah, and you just look at
Between Brandon and Westman.
yeah, and we talk about the youth that Central Plains had last year. It was a very young Westman Wildcats team
Yeah,
compared to recent years, and yeah, a team that is I think is going to take a huge jump in the standings from seventh to third. Going to be fun to see them in this tune-up, and it could have been a lot better in net heading into the season, but that just gives opportunity for someone in that roster to step up and maybe be that girl this season for a decorated franchise in the MFHL. The two Winnipeg teams, the Ice, the Avros, they don't get going until later on in the tournament. The evening games to kick off on Friday night. Two teams that are perennial contenders. The Ice have been back-to-back champions, dethroned last year in the semis against this Avros team, and the Avros one goal short in double OT from winning their first ever MFHL championship outright.
yeah. So,
Expectation to see two strong teams again this year.
well, in the city they have a wealth of talent. I mean, they have a lot of girls to pick from. So they're never going to be far from the top,
Yeah.
right? It's for the Ice. I think it's can they find somebody to step up and be a number one goaltender? The one thing about Eugene's teams, um, they seem to get just better and better as the year goes on. I don't. He, he's that's been a well coached team for with Eugene there for a few years now, and they find a way to win. There's no doubt about that. Sometimes when people don't think they should win, but they will come at you. They will play a disciplined style. They will move the puck. Um, you don't want to take penalties against Eugene's teams because he'll make sure his power play is efficient. When it comes to the Avros, yeah, the Avros will be in the hunt. They've got lots of depth of talent. Ashley always seems to find the players. Again, Ashley Van Eyck, well coached team. Um, you know, Goaltending will be there. They have a number one for sure. Whereas maybe the Ice don't. That somebody's going to have to establish themselves as that number one. Um, so um, they lost offense, mind you. That's the key. How are they going to replace that offense with the Avros?
Yeah.
You know what? They've got depth. They'll find a way. It always seems like somebody steps up with Ashley's teams to put the puck in the net. And they really don't. They really don't need to depend on one line like a lot of other teams do. Now they did depend a lot on one player last year,
Yeah.
and if you let her get away, but she's not. She's not there. So she's moved on. So up here, so they'll have to find a different way. And I've said they've lost talented goal scorers like that in the past, and so is Eugene. And they seem you all go blah blah. Oh, it's going to be no. They find a way because, like I say, there's lots of talent in the city, and they have lots of
Yeah.
players to choose from. and when you've got established programs that are well coached, they're going to be in contention. So I look forward to seeing them. They'll be a different look for sure, but I don't think they'll be bad.
Nope. And hey, I mean, quite a loss for anybody to lose a record breaker in Rio Pierre. Really felt like at times it was the Afros' year to finally get it done outright because they are technically co-MFHL champions with the Ice back in 2019, 2020. But
Yeah.
yeah, even though Pierre's gone, I think the mission stays the same for this Avros team and Ashley Van Aglen, who are continuing to search for that first championship. May very well come this year.
Well,
Excited to see them
Ashley's
compete
as
with it.
competitive as it gets. I've known her for a lot of years. We consider each other close friends, and she's very competitive. I will tell you this: I know that's her goal is to win this championship. I know that, but that's not her number one goal. Her number one goal is to get her players the visibility and move on to post secondary. And not many people in our league have done a better job than Ashley Van Aglen in doing that over the years. She has moved a lot of players onto U Sport, NCAA, ACHA. She promotes her players very well. That program has had a ton of success, as has the league overall. But Ashley is like that's kind of a flagship when you over the last 5 to 6 years for sure as to the success of her moving players on, if not a little longer.
Oh, 100%. I mean, she's been doing it for 15 years now, going into year 15, and this Avros team in year in and year out, they're contenders. And not only that, you speak to the players, I've said this many times, but they just have nothing but kind and great words to say about Ashley, and it just shows how much of a mentor, a great mentor, she truly has been to her players throughout her time here in the MFHL and anywhere else she's coached. For the other teams in this tournament, one last MFHL team we haven't talked about, the Pembina Valley Hawks. Before we move into the other teams, Pembina Valley last year ebbs and
Yeah.
flows. A lot of talent. They gave the Ice some tough games in that first round.
Oh,
Actually, the
yeah.
first team to beat the
Yep.
Ice and for the first
And
time
playoffs.
in the playoffs since they went back to
Yeah.
back. Two
Yep.
perfect runs beforehand. But yeah, Pembina Valley, they've of course lost talent. They always seem to put a competitive team on paper, though, a team that is always on the prowl around the middle of the pack in the MFHL. Expectations for them heading into this weekend, looking to get some games
I,
under.
well, I'm not too sure about their goaltending and whether their goaltending is they're going to be, I think, young in net. That could be a concern. Um, and I think they've lost quite a bit of offense and going to be depending heavily on one player, O'Brien. And I just don't know if they have the depth, the same depth they had, because they will be young this year. And I don't know if they have the same depth that they will have had in the last couple of years when it comes to offense. This, you know what, Matt Victor, he's done a good job coaching there. So they'll be competitive. They'll play a structured game. They'll they'll make you work. Like I said, Central Plains and them played on the weekend. It's only preseason, but it was 4-3. It was a tough game. When I talked to some people that were there, they said it could have went either way. Both teams had 36, 37 shots on net, which both teams I'm sure want to reduce, but it's preseason. You got to be good in your own end. I preach that when I coach. If you want to be a successful team, you look at the teams in our league that have won the championships, which I was fortunate enough to do. We were good in our own end. What are the Ice? They're good in their own end. What is Eastman? They're exceptional in their own end. I mean, those teams know that it starts in your own end, and getting back 200 feet is key. So, um, if you can be good in your own end, it'll all work out. And I'm not sure where I'll have more knowledge after the weekend, just like you, when we see
Sure.
how this plays out with their decor and what they've brought in. But I mean, their U15 team was competitive, but it's always a big step up. I coached our U15 team here for 2 years, and we were top three. And yet, when those players moved up as first years last year, it was a tough go for them. It's an 18-year-old league,
Mhm.
and unless you're really exceptional as a first year, Even someone like Rio Pierre, it took her a year before she started putting up numbers last year. You don't just start putting them up right away in this league. It's it's a tough league to play in when you're a 15-year-old. So that's always something you got to look at. People say, "Oh, they've got talent." Well, yeah, but if they're 15 and lots of them, it's a chore. It can be a chore for sure.
No doubt. Yeah, it's just, different stages of development, comparing a 17, 8-year-old to a 15-year-old, it's tough. It's
Yeah,
really tough to
it really
adjust
is.
with that.
And I look at the best teams in our league over the last 5 years. What they've done is they've developed a cycle
Yeah.
where they have, maybe 30% of the team, 35, 40% is third year players. They've got same kind of gap in the middle, and then they only have maybe 30, 25 to 30% rookies. Whereas a lot of the other teams that don't have the, like these, when you look at an Eastman or Winnipeg Ice or Winnipeg Avros, don't have the same numbers to pick from.
Yeah.
They tend to be more of a 50-50 split sometimes, if not a little higher, which can be a tough go for a year. Can be a tough go.
Yeah. Yeah. No doubt about it. Interesting to see how the different teams throughout this province have operated throughout the years and what's led to that championship success as we've talked
I
about.
think this could be a very. I'm putting Eastman on top of the heap, um, but I think the other 17 others, and don't get me wrong, if Eastman doesn't show up to play, like I said this the last few years, you got to show up to play in this league, in our league. And if you don't show up to play, you could lose. No doubt about it. And there's always a goaltender that can steal a game for you. But at the end of the day, I think the 7 teams that are chasing Eastman on any given night, if one team doesn't show up to play, uh, you could watch upsets happen, because I think it's going to be tighter this year than it was last year, going back to 8 teams. I think the league is going to be more competitive.
Yeah, it certainly shrinks the playing field a bit, levels
Yeah.
it for some teams, and yeah, we get a chance to see all 8 MFHL teams coming up this weekend. There are 3 other teams that are going to be in the tournament, 2 from the Saskatchewan Female U18 AAA Hockey League and the Prince Albert Northern Bears and the Weyburn Goldwings, and then a CSSHL team, another Manitoban team, and Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy's U18 Female Buffaloes program. Your thoughts on them? I'm not sure how much research you've done into these teams scouting going in, but
Not a lot.
Weyburn, a consistent team that showed up and played in this tournament, that has been a participant. PA
I
wasn't in it last year, and Pilot Mountain's
has
been
been.
consistent in it. So, yeah, take us through those teams, Ferdy. Your
Well,
thoughts on them?
Pilot Mound and I their recruiting last year I thought was by far the toughest team they've ever brought to our event. They were by far the most competitive they've been in a long time, and I think the coaches that's there, I think they're going to show up, and I think they're going to be like that. There was a few years earlier when they were coming to our showcase, they've been fairly loyal to our showcase, where they were a team that was hard pressed to win a game. That's not the case anymore. I think they've got done a better job of attracting players, and I think they've got a better done a better job of finding somebody that can coach them at that level. Um, so I think they'll be a tough. I wouldn't surprise me at all if they win at least a couple of games. The Saskatchewan teams, like I said when we were talking earlier, Weyburn came here last year, won a game, tied the ice, and lost 2 tough games, one by one goal, one by a couple, and against good teams. They were last place in the Saskatchewan League last year, but the Saskatchewan League is a tough league, and they did have 8 or 9 wins. I think it was 8 counting overtime wins, and 2 or 3 overtime losses. So they weren't. There was years past, 5, 6 years ago, where they struggled to find wins at all. Now that's not the case anymore. Casey's done a good job of coaching that team, and I think they'll come here and they'll be very competitive. Um, it's always a struggle when you're a smaller center in Saskatchewan because it's open zone. It's all about recruiting. Unlike we have regional boundaries. So it's hard to attract players uh, away from Regina, Saskatoon. Battleford's done a good job as a small place. They had a guy come there and coach who was former university coach, and he's attracted players. Um, but PA was, ahead of Notre Dame and Weyburn in the standings last year. They've been in the top 2 or 3 in the past, and I'm not sure where they'll be this year, but I'm assuming they will come with a very competitive team. The one thing about Saskatchewan teams is it doesn't matter who you play; it's going to be physical. They
Yeah.
play they play a hard brand of hockey. I've taken our U15 teams there 2 3 years ago when I was coach, and you were looking for calls and you weren't getting any calls. It didn't matter. They allowed you to be physical, which I like. Um,
Yeah.
so they'll come here and they'll play hard. They'll play hard on the puck. They'll compete, and they'll let you know they're in the building. So you're going to play them. Be prepared to be put in the wall, which is fine. It's the way the game's played nowadays. So I have no doubt that both those teams will compete well,
Yeah.
as
And
well as Pilot Mountain.
yep. Yep, and Pilot Mountain, they've had a chance to play some games already. I think most recently on their schedule, they took on some university talent, so they're going to be back in action against the host Central Plains. As the Caps play 2 games to open up the showcase. As for the Saskatchewan teams, Weyburn won't get going until 5:30, and as for PA, they won't get going until the Saturday, if I'm reading this. No, the Friday night,
Friday
of
night.
course, against the
Everybody plays
Winnipeg
one.
Athletes. Yeah.
Central Plains. Unfortunately, I had to do this to the host. Gets 2 games Friday, 2 games Saturday, because with an 11 team draw, it's the only way you can make it work. Everybody else gets 1, 2, and 1. So
Yeah.
that's how it works out. And Central Plains was good with that. They gives them a little time off Saturday night, maybe do some team building.
And no matter what, just a lot of hockey that's going to be played at Stride Place. If you want to check out the games on the main arena and you can't make it into the arena, G Show Productions has you covered. Be sure to check out our bundles and our options to watch the game on our website at
More than just a little portable.
gshowproductions.io.
That's a great price you've given us for those the package for sure. And the $5 per game is more than reasonable. That's I thank you for that.
Course, and yeah, our goal, of course, Ferdi, as you know, is to bring as many people into the streams as possible to watch this great talent as we get tuned up for the upcoming 2025-2026 regular season of female amateur hockey. Ferdi Nelissen joining this edition of the MFHL podcast. Always great to talk, Ferdi, and we'll see you this weekend coming up.
I appreciate the time and the ability you've given me to promote the showcase. Thanks a lot, Greg.
And to use an older term, I guess now you love to see it. Ferdi Nelissen joining this edition of the MFHL podcast, and yeah, gearing up for the Cap Showcase. We're gonna be showing this text down below on the screen all episode long to and keep you guys on your toes, on your feet in terms of where you can catch all the action this week, featuring all teams from the MFHL, all 8 of them, and then 3 other teams, 2 Saskatchewan teams, and then of course Pilot Mountain Hockey Academy. And yeah, expecting high compete this weekend, some close games in there. Hoping there's not too many blowouts for from a spectating standpoint, just simply because, well, games usually more fun when they're closer in nature, for sure, on the scoreboard and stuff like that. But yeah, this year's Central Plains Capital Showcase starts tomorrow, ends on Sunday. 14 of the 22 games can be seen here on gshow.uscreen.io. Be sure to check it out. We're going to get into some news right away from around the league here. An announcement from the Winnipeg Ice that they made, I believe, a few weeks ago, maybe last week, but they've announced their 2025-2026 captains. Congratulations to Aaliyah Texiera on becoming the next Winnipeg Ice captain, and also to Chloe Nicholas, Chloe Delaquie, and Cassie Carvalho for donning the A's this year. You can check out all the information on that post on Winnipeg Ice AAA on their Instagram. As for the Pembina Valley Hawks, going to be joined by their head coach and Matt Victor coming up in just a moment. But yeah, we've touched on them already in this episode. A close 4-3 victory over Central Plains on Saturday, but then facing off against Eastman. Not so well on the scoreboard, but hey, it is preseason. Wins at this point really don't matter that much. It's all about building that process, and it was great getting to get a look behind the scenes a bit in terms of how Matt Victor, head coach of the Pembina Valley Hawks, operates, his mindset, coaching philosophy. I had a chance to ask him about that and more coming up on this edition of the MFHL podcast on G-Show Productions on gshow.ca. The bench boss of the Central Plains Capitals joins us next. It's Matt Victor, head coach of the Pembina Valley Hawks of the MFHL, joining the MFHL podcast. Matt, a busy week for your team ahead, as well as all the rest of the teams in the MFHL heading down to Portage La Prairie to compete in the Central Plains Capital Showcase. But yeah, how have things been leading up to this? The team's been able to have some preseason games under their belt, have practiced and bonded together a bit too. How's preseason gone so far?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me on, Graham. It's no, it's been really good. Some other teams have been going out to tournaments and whatnot, and we've been just kind of, just getting our tactics and our systems going forward. And no, it's been really good. We started camp early August and shut down for a bit. And then yeah, we fired back up. So it's just getting our systems and stuff down pat, and then yeah, a couple of games this past weekend. So it's looking good so far.
The makeup of this year's team got some good returning talent, but have lost some impactful players. A player like Cassie O'Brien, she was talked about earlier on in this podcast, actually, as me and Ferdi Nelissen were kind of breaking down the teams in this year's showcase. She's looking to be a big time player as she was last year. But yeah, talk about this year's makeup of the Hawks, the strengths and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. Last year's team, having players like Abby Bragg and Jess Anderson and Emma Durand and I don't know, Kasha Rakowski and some of those strong veterans and that presence there. It's some big boots or big skates to fill there. So yeah, it's a different look this year for us. I think we have more parity this year, which is pretty awesome. I think we're going to have a different attack. But yeah, no, I think we're going to be competitive again this year. I think it's every year come and go. You always have to kind of look at the skill set, look at the character and things like that. So, like I said, big boots to fill, but I think it's going to be good. We're going to be a gritty team, and part of our identity this year. And most of my teams kind of in the past have really promoted, a lot of compete, a lot of grit. And I think that's kind of that championship pedigree that teams have to have going forward. So, we're really trying to set the standard early with our group and, build into the regular season. And then obviously with playoffs where it really matters and the real season starts there. So I get excited for that.
Been at this for a few years as the bench boss for this Hawks team now. Of course, as we spoke about, quite a few talented players last year that have now left. But you talked about, the grit and compete this team has had. You talked about how that's usually like you like to see your teams play. Talk about, yeah, I guess your coaching philosophy, how you feel it fits so well with this Pembina Valley Hawks group.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's something that, myself, a long time ago, when I was a player, and that was kind of my staple. And I had success myself, as a hockey player. So I feel like it's important as us as coaches coming up and, coaching these young players and really trying to get that, those type of characteristics, I guess, really getting those implemented with young players, because as you move up in the ranks, I really believe the character, your grit, your compete is what separates you. As you go from U15 to U18 into U Sport Div 1, Div 3, the talent and the gap between the talent just gets tighter and tighter. So, the separating factor is going to be the compete, the grit, the mindsets, the mental preparation, things like that. So, going back to like philosophies and stuff like that too, it's, obviously it's that working mechanism. Development's a huge thing for me too. This is still a development league. So making sure that your players are developing, learning the game, understanding the game, the whys, things like that. So that's a big part of my philosophy as well. And a big thing that a lot of coaches don't talk about in the competitive levels is the fun part. If it's not fun, we quit. We don't do it. We do something else. So the game has to be fun. So you have to make it fun as well, right? So I think it's super important to have that part of your philosophy in your environment and kind of building into your culture.
Continuing along those lines of just these past two seasons, right? Two first round exits, but in all of those series, like 2 years ago against Westman, this team was competing against who was the second ranked team in the league in those standings. And then last year doing something that no team had done the past 2 years previous, which was handing the Winnipeg Ice a loss. Of course, falling short in both of those series, but I guess what have you learned along the way of just from this group, what they've been able to display in these moments, as well as the takeaways you've had from these short postseason runs?
Yeah, for sure. I think what it is that these teams are good, and there's not much that really separates, especially when you get to playoffs. Anything is possible. So again, I keep going back to you know how identity and some of those non-tangibles of like grit and compete are so important. On paper, this team or that team should win, but they don't. And sometimes, you just have to prepare your squad, make sure that they're resilient, things like that, experience failures, experience that, but being able to bounce back. And I think that's huge. You mentioned last year, we celebrated that first win against the Ice. Like you mentioned, they haven't lost in a while in playoffs. So that was a feather in our cap, and game two was super close as well. It was a one goal game until maybe a minute and a half, 2 minutes left. So it's tough, but we're always up for that challenge. And again, playoffs, anything can happen there. So Eugene, he's been here for a while, and he knows what he's doing, and he had a good squad there. And second round they almost took out the Avros as well. So it's yeah, you learn a lot, watching that and saying like anything's possible, and what's missing, and it's just you just kind of every year as a coach just kind of bring in steal from other coaches and try and bring that into your squad. I mean, coaches, like, we steal everything, and it really is. And you talk to other coaches, I talked to Krista Kirkup a lot, and Derek Tibbetts, who used to be my old junior coach 25 years ago. It's pretty cool to like just learn from them and their experiences, and hopefully build a championship squad going forward.
Oh, for sure. And it's great to be able to, like you said, kind of parrot the different things that are working out there. And that's truly how you do win this game, is just copying the best ideas from the teams that do it the best. That's one of the big ways, of course. But preseason, two exhibition games so far. You know, about four coming up this weekend in Portage. But yeah, took on Central Plains and Eastman, a win against Central Plains, dropped one against the Selects. Take me through this past weekend, getting to see this group in action for the first time.
Yeah, for sure. As a coaching staff, we were super excited to have that first game. Get into Central Plains. We've always had good games against Central Plains. They're always gritty. They're always kind of like game seven kind of games. I don't know what it is, but it always is. And it was a very good competition, very good game. I'm pretty proud of the girls. We kind of implemented some systems, some tactics the week before, and we're pretty proud of how the level of execution that we've seen, considering the amount of time that we've been together. So we're super excited. So yeah, I think it was a close game, 4-3 game. It went both ways for a while. We came out quick, they tied it up, and then yeah, we had a big goal by Casey O'Brien that kind of put us ahead, and then Sophia Cox kind of gave us that insurance goal, and yeah, it was great. And then going into Eastman, I don't think I have to say too much. I mean, you covered those games in the finals, and Eastman's is the the standard I think this year, and so it was nice to go play them early. They have a great team, a great forechecking team. They're always on you. We stayed in there for the first two periods. It was a 1-0 game, and a few mistakes, which happens early in the season, and the gates kind of opened on us. But you know what? For kind of to end on that, it's great for us as coaches. We get video. We can share that with the girls this week before the Central Plains Showcase, and we can just kind of keep building on that. Some of these failures are great teaching points, and that's how we take it, and that's how we view it.
Yeah, and I mean, championships aren't won now, right? You can certainly build towards that, though, as that's what all these months leading up to the real games playoffs. That's the process that truly does matter. But as for Eastman, this is a team you guys will get again coming up to open up the showcase this Friday, 3 p.m. game. Two games on the Saturday against Weyburn and Yellowhead, and then finishing off against the Winnipeg Ice. So even though this is just a showcase, a chance to play some really good teams before the MFHL season's going to be starting. I see this team also has a trip to Fargo scheduled too. But yeah, for the meantime, the Central Plains Capital Showcase, what that prep has looked like heading into this annual showcase.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I touched on it. We have video now. We've had some reps, so we're clean a few things up this week, and then it's nice to get Eastman again. On fresher legs. Never, not that that's ever an excuse. It was a quick turnaround for us, but again, it's you have to be tough. You have to be resilient. You just have to work through those those hard times, and when the tank's empty, you just have to keep pushing, which I can speak for my group. They push right to the end. So yeah, playing Eastman first, I'm excited, about that. Again, when you're always playing, what we feel is the standard, it's only going to make us better. So yeah, Friday's gonna be exciting. Weyburn, I watched him a little bit last year at that same showcase, and and it's always fun playing a Saskey team too, right? I feel like they play a strong pedigree of hockey too. So which kind of aligns with our identity this year. So again, hopefully, our girls can be up for that battle and then play them out. And Yellowhead's Yellowhead. I mean, it's the same thing. They're always a gritty team. I think I really believe Tibby kind of built that culture there. And I think that's how they play hockey out there as well, right? Besides just that program, but it's just that's how that is. And then hey, why not? Let's play the ice. They kind of ended our season last year, and it's a lot of good storylines. So I'm excited to play some top-notch teams in the showcase. Again, the wins and losses in September, like you mentioned, don't mean anything. But again, it's really onboarding, the 9 new players that we have this year. It really helps them kind of pick up to the speed, the reactions, all those things. So yeah, quite excited for that.
Well, excitement all around right now. It's in the air. As once this podcast airs, this interview, we're about a day away, a night away from this showcase starting. Matt Victor, head coach of the Pembina Valley Hawks, will be getting a chance to take a look at how the Hawks look in some of the games broadcasted this weekend at the showcase. You can check it out on gshowproductions.uscreen.io. Matt, best of luck this upcoming weekend and into the regular season this year.
Yep. Thank you very much, Graham.
Matt Victor, head coach of the Pembina Valley Hawks, joining this edition of the MFHL podcast. And of course, his team will be in action coming up starting tomorrow, along with the rest of the teams competing at this year's Central Plains Capital Showcase. Pembina Valley opens their showcase up against the Eastman Selects. Full schedule, you can see it right there. We're going to have a full game schedule available at some point today, as we still got to import 3 games from Sunday that we're going to be doing, game 19, 21, and 22. All the games that we're going to be carrying are not highlighted as we take a look at the schedule here. A lot of hockey coming up this weekend. And as for the Pembina Valley Hawks and all the other teams, I think the goal is just, getting as many positive reps in, as much positivity to build off of as possible heading into what is going to be a long and maybe grueling season for some of these teams, given how physical some of the teams in the MFHL and how physical the female hockey game can get, right? But as for Pembina Valley, the rest of the MFHL teams looking to end off their preseason on a high note coming up this weekend in Portage La Prairie. It's the 2025 Central Plains Capital Showcase coming up this weekend. Super excited for it. As for Pembina Valley, though, they're going to have a few more exhibition games coming up afterwards, after this showcase, before they get going in their MFHL regular season play, which I'm pretty sure regular season might be starting next week, but not totally sure. Still waiting for the full schedule to come out on the MFHL's website until we're able to officially make that call. But we'll have all opening days schedule information and opening weekend information for the MFHL's regular season in 2025-2026 coming up on next week's episode, which will be back next Thursday, a bit later on, though. Had to put the show at 10 a.m. today since, we're heading out to Portage today very soon, so had to get this out of the way and get it out to you all MFHL fans. But we're going to send it to one last commercial break here, I guess, the second commercial break of the show, and then we'll finish off with some final words on this edition of the MFHL podcast for Season 3, Episode 2, brought to you by Terrico Movement, Fitness and Performance, and Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia. Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia offers the widest selection of sports cards and signed memorabilia in the city. For dedicated casual and new collectors, Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia has everything a collector could ask for. Everything we sell is stored with care, and with help from our knowledgeable team, we'll help you find exactly what you're looking for. We carry Upper Deck hockey card brands like Series 1 and 2, The Cup, Ultimate, SPA, and plenty more. So what are you waiting for? Come down to Can Central Sports Cards and Memorabilia, Winnipeg's premier sports cards and memorabilia store. And you made it to the end of the Manitoba Female U18 AAA Hockey League podcast for Season 3, Episode 2. Thank you to Ferdi, Nelissen, and Matt Victor for coming on the show and being the guest for this week's episode. Stay tuned for next week, as we'll have more details for you in terms of who the guests will be and what content we're going to be discussing next week. More news from around the MFHL to be talked about, and we'll also be recapping this showcase coming up this weekend in Portage La Prairie. Haven't said that enough times, but coverage starts tomorrow morning. First game is 10:30 a.m. Hosts in the Central Plains Capitals taking on the Interlake Lightning. Two MFHL rivals going at it. Should be a lot of fun tomorrow. And we got some early mornings this week. We're going to try our best to get a good night rest in tonight before the chaos ensues. But excited for this upcoming weekend. I hope you all are too, who are going to be tuning in. As for next week, we'll be talking more about just teams in general from around the MFHL, previewing them heading into this upcoming season, as the regular season is truly on the horizon at this point. Very close to the real game starting here in the MFHL, and we can't wait for it. But as for this weekend, everybody, hope you enjoy all the great hockey coming your way from Portage La Prairie. We can't wait to bring you 14 of the 22 games that'll be played at this year's showcase. And as for myself, Graham the G Show Forsyth, and the rest of us here at G Show Productions, this is us saying so long for now. We'll see you 7 days from now for episode 3 in season 3 of this podcast, the MFHL podcast, on your home for MFHL hockey on G Show Productions, gshow.ca. It's Graham the G Show Forsyth, giving you a peace out and waving so long, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day, a great weekend, and enjoy the great action coming your way this weekend.